Once upon a time, in a small Cameroonian village, a child was born with the strangest eyes. Her name was Bibi. Her skin was as dark as palm kernel nuts, but her eyes were as blue as the ocean. This made the villagers very uncomfortable because they believed eyes were supposed to be brown. Questions swirled in the village. They could not understand how an African child could have blue eyes. It was not normal. Their questions soon turned to rumors, spreading like wildfire, insinuating that Bibi's mother, Fram, was a witch, and that she had made a pact with the devil, and that Bibi was the devil's pawn. Driven by fear and superstition, the husband turned his back on his wife and child, banishing them from his home and into the forest. Living in the forest, far away from the accusing eyes of the villagers, Fram devoted her life to raising her daughter. Even though she had been accused of witchcraft, she knew in her heart she wasn't a devil worshipper, and that there was nothing wrong with her baby. The color of Bibi's eyes had shocked her too, but she saw her daughter as the most beautiful baby any woman could ever ask for. She vowed to protect Bibi from the world's harsh judgments. Side by side, mother and daughter grew crops and cared for animals in the forest. Living apart from the village, they found comfort in their own world, filled with laughter, affection, and storytelling. Bibi learned the ways of the land from her mother. She was also a very curious child, full of questions about the village beyond and the people who lived there. Fram admired her daughter's curious nature, and she shared stories about the village, but she always cautioned Bibi to stay close to the safety of the forest. She warned her about the villagers' unkindness, and although she was curious, Bibi never disobeyed her mother. She never ventured beyond the confines of the forest. The bond between mother and daughter was unbreakable, their love boundless, as they shared every moment together. However, tragedy struck when Fram fell ill with a mysterious sickness. Once strong and full of life, she could barely leave her bed. Bibi tried everything to take care of her mother, but it wasn't enough. At just 18 years old, she lost her mother. It was a sorrow beyond words, and for the first time in her life, Bibi found herself completely alone. With a heavy heart, she laid her mother to rest in a forest grave, mourning her loss in solitude. Bibi felt the weight of loneliness pressing down on her heart after her mother's death. With her mother as her only companion, she had never felt the need for other company. Now she yearned to experience the warmth and companionship of other people. Standing at the edge of the forest, she gazed longingly at the village in a distance, wanting to join in the activities she had only heard tales of. She imagined the joy of making friends and participating in the lively village gatherings her mother had described. Yet despite her yearning, she couldn't shake her mother's warning from her mind. One day, however, Bibi decided to ignore her mother's warning. She summoned the courage to go into the village. She stepped out of the forest hesitantly, and then she wandered through the lively streets and into the crowded market square. She had never seen so many people before. The sights and sounds of village life overwhelmed her senses. The vibrant colors and the laughter of the people filled her with a sense of belonging she had never known. It was the most beautiful feeling ever, being out there. In the bustle and hustle, she felt she never wanted to return to the forest. She wanted to stay there in the village forever, among the people, to share in the joy around her. But Bibi was ignorant to think this way. She couldn't possibly understand the extent of human ignorance her mother had cautioned her about. Approaching a young boy playing in the dusty market square, she knelt down before him, charmed by his innocence. Extending her hand in greeting, she was taken aback when the boy caught sight of her piercing blue eyes and let out a loud scream. Startled, he scrambled to his feet and fled from Bibi in terror, his cries echoing through the square. Watching him run away, Bibi's heart broke into countless pieces. The boy's loud screams rang through the market, drawing the attention of everyone around. heads turned and eyes fixed on Bibi, their expressions quickly turning to fear at the sight of her unusual eyes. She tried to talk to them, to explain herself, that she meant them no harm, that she was just a girl, but they all pulled away from her. Mothers instinctively shielded their children from her, whispers spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Soon an angry mob surrounded Bibi, their expressions twisted with hate as they shouted insults at her. They called her hurtful names like witch, devil, demon, and told her to return to the pits of hell. Tears ran down Bibi's face as she realized the true extent of the villagers' prejudice, a painful confirmation of her mother's warning. Heartbroken, Bibi ran back into the forest, her tears mixing with the soft whispers of the wind. Their unkindness baffled her. What had she ever done to deserve it? Her eyes were simply eyes, blue, brown, grey, nothing more. She hadn't chosen to be this way. Why were they so mean to her? When she returned to the forest, Bibi went straight to her mother's grave. There she knelt and wept, crying out to her mother and to the gods, asking why. Why was she made this way by God? All she wanted to be was ordinary, to have normal eyes like any other girl. The stares and whispers of the villagers had left deep scars on her tender heart, a pain she never wished to experience again. In that moment, she made a vow never to return to the village, no matter what. And for 2 long years, Bibi kept her word, never venturing outside the forest. She went back to her simple life, taking care of the crops, spending time in nature. She still missed her mother, but she found ways to cope. She was content to spend the rest of her life in the forest. But little did Bibi know that fate had more in store for her, yet to be revealed. 2 years later, an unexpected calamity struck the village. A strong wind swept through, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. The villagers woke to find their fields flattened and their crops destroyed. Never before had they witnessed such a disaster, and they were quick to attribute it to supernatural forces. Filled with fear and confusion, they pondered over what they might have done to offend the gods. Soon, whispers began to circulate, pointing fingers at the witch said to live in the forest, Bibi. They claimed to have seen her riding the winds, her whispers carrying the destructive force that took down their crops. Blinded by fear and desperation, the villagers rallied against Bibi, accusing her of witchcraft and calling for her punishment. As rumors quickly spread, a witch hunt followed, driven by the villagers' anger and thirst for vengeance. In their eyes, Bibi was to blame for their misfortune, and they were determined to see her pay the price for their suffering. The king, curious about the accusations but moved by compassion, decided to uncover the truth. He ordered his men to fetch Bibi and bring her before his court. Though he had heard stories of the witch who lived in the forest, he had never met her himself. His goal was simple: to find a solution to the village's misfortune and to take away the fears of his people. Bibi was captured and brought before the king, a moment that will forever change the course of her life. Standing in the king's court, surrounded by a room full of elders ready to pass judgment on her, fear almost suffocated Bibi. She braced herself for the worst, saddened by the fact that these people who knew nothing about her were ready to condemn her for a crime she had not committed. Quietly, she prayed to her mother and begged the gods for mercy. But to Bibi's surprise, the king's eyes did not hold accusation. They held kindness and wonder. He was also different from what Bibi had imagined. All her life, she had pictured the king as an old, wrinkled man. But the man before her was remarkably handsome and not that much older than herself. His smooth cocoa skin and flowing locks stimulated strange feelings within her, even as she faced danger. Since the palace guards broke into her hut that morning and forced her to come with them, she felt a slight spark of hope. The king, on the other hand, found himself equally captivated by Bibi. In her, he saw not a witch, but a strikingly beautiful woman. Her presence was so captivating that it left him speechless. Looking at Bibi's stunning appearance, the king understood then why the villagers thought she was a witch. How could someone be so beautiful? Her blue eyes in particular held him captive, drawing him in until he felt he was lost in them. He didn't see them as threatening. They were rare, yes, but undeniably beautiful, and he longed to look into them forever. His heart raced, and his mind struggled to understand his feelings. He knew without much thought that Bibi was no witch. But as a wise ruler, he also knew that he had to convince his people and elders of this. He did not want to be seen as a reckless leader or one who ignores the concerns of his people. So what the king did was that he ordered his elders and his entire court to find proof that Bibi was a witch. They did not like his decision, believing her blue eyes were enough evidence. An investigation was a waste of time, but they respected their king too much to argue. In the days that followed, they gathered and carried out investigations, desperate to prove Bibi guilty. Even the witch doctors and soothsayers were consulted. However, in the end, no evidence was found to support the accusation against Bibi. Several days later, news reached the village. The messenger revealed that the strong winds had not only swept through Bobong alone, rather they had been a widespread natural disaster affecting the entire country. With this realization, it became clear to all that Bibi was innocent. On the day Bibi was released from confinement, the king did something that shocked the villagers and left their mouths hanging open. He knelt down before Bibi in front of his court, kissed her hand and apologized for the pain he had caused her. The villagers could not believe their eyes. How could the king kneel before a girl from the forest, a mere village girl? It was unprecedented, unlike anything they had ever witnessed. Their shock deepened even more when the king invited Bibi to have dinner with him the next day. After that day, the villagers had no choice but to accept Bibi. If their king could do it, who were they not to? Whispers started spreading that the king might have feelings for Bibi. They had never seen him so taken by any woman. It was hard at first, as they had spent their lives fearing the meaning behind Bibi's eyes. But the more they interacted with her, the more their perceptions changed. Bibi was kind-hearted, intelligent, a joy to be around, and always ready to help those in need. She was just like any other girl. Her genuine warmth made them feel guilty for ever accusing her of witchcraft. The color of her eyes still gave them pause, of course. But they were learning to accept her unique features. Over time, they came to accept her as one of them. Meanwhile, at a dinner in the palace, a bond began to form between Bibi and the king. Their admiration for each other blossomed into love. As they got to know each other, their laughter filled the halls. It was like two halves of a coin meeting, like two soulmates finding each other after a millennia. Even the blind could see that they were destined to be together. Not long after their first date, the king proposed to Bibi, sparking excitement throughout the village as preparations for the royal wedding began. The once negative rumors surrounding Bibi transformed into praise and affection. People went out of their way to ensure the ceremony went smoothly. Their wedding day was a sight to behold, drawing guests from far and near to witness their love. As the couple stood before the palace, exchanging vows and sealing their union with a kiss, clapping and cheers rang out in celebration. They lived happily ever after, ruling their kingdom with kindness, compassion, and inclusivity. And that was how a girl, once considered an outcast simply because of the way she looked, found acceptance and love in her community. This story teaches us the importance of not judging others based on appearance alone, and the power of compassion and acceptance. It shows us how fear and bias can lead to injustice and suffering, but also how love and understanding can overcome even the deepest divisions. It also teaches us about the dangers of spreading false information about others based on fear and misunderstanding. Just because you don't understand something does not mean that thing is bad. In the end, it's a story about redemption, forgiveness, and the transformative power of love. I hope you enjoyed the story, and if you did, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more beautiful stories.